The Donut Bag is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Your data is your business. Protect it with ExpressVPN. For 3 extra months free with a 1-year package, go to the link listed in my Twitter profile. What's going on, everybody? We are continuing our countdown of every Seinfeld episode ranked. This is part 2. Part 1, we covered from episodes 166 to 150. Let's do a brief recap of that. Number 166 was the Puerto Rican Day Parade, then the finale, then the jacket, then the tape, the deal, the muffin tops, the ex-girlfriend, the gum, mail-in bonding, the strongbox, the dog, the stock tip, the pilot, the very first episode, the robbery, the statue, the suicide, the cartoon at 150. Now on to 149. The postponement, number 149. The George gets cold feet, tries everything he can to postpone the engagement. Elaine is jealous of George's engagement, and Kramer spills hot coffee on himself. This is the one where the features the rabbi, and he is one of the worst characters in Seinfeld, in my opinion. It's a horrible premise. Elaine tells the rabbi that she's basically jealous of George, and he goes and blabs it to everyone. I think that's a terrible premise. And I don't think this is true. I don't think any holy person actually takes what any confession and just blabs it to everyone. So I think it's a horrible premise. If a priest did that to me, if I went to confession and told him something in confidence and he told everybody, that's just terrible. So just a horrible premise. This is also where we learn that crying as a weapon is very effective. Both George and Susan do this. I think we already knew that, but still, it's a very good lesson. There's a couple good quotes. Jerry says, breakups take 2 or 3 times. You have to build your immunity. And a great scene is when Elaine is meeting up with George and telling him that she's so happy for him, and George has a great line. Hey, listen, if you ever get a date, maybe the 4 of us could go out sometime. That's a classic George. So I just hated the rabbi so much, so that's why this gets such a low ranking. Number 148, the maestro from season 7. Elaine's boyfriend likes to be called the maestro. Kramer reaches an unsatisfactory settlement with a coffee company, much to his lawyer's chagrin. So this is the first time we see Jackie Childs, which is one of the best characters in the entire series. But this is also where we see the maestro, and the maestro is just, to me, so annoying. I hated the maestro. I hated the everything about him, basically. This is also the episode where George says that security guards should be able to sit down while they're guarding stores, and that leads to him getting a chair for the security guard and the store being robbed because the security guard was napping. Kind of a funny premise. One major plot point was the maestro going on that there's no houses available in Tuscany. Like, who gives a crap? That's like, how relatable is that? Who's trying to get a house in Tuscany? But Jackie Childs is just great. He was like, it's outrageous, it's egregious, it's preposterous. And also when he said, who told you to put the bomb on? And there's a funny scene where George says, I could sense the slightest human suffering. And Jerry says, are you sensing anything right now? So that is number 148. Number 147, the checks. Jerry gets hundreds of royalty checks. They're worth only a few cents each for appearing on a Japanese TV program. He gets writer's cramp. George and Jerry pitch their pilot to Japanese TV executives. And there is the Elaine boyfriend, Brett. He annoyed me. I didn't like anything about Brett. Also, there was some subplot about Jerry and a twirling umbrella that was kind of stupid. There's also a subplot about the Sunshine Carpet Cleaners, that they were a group that would brainwash people And George wanted to be brainwashed, but they wouldn't for some reason. This is also the episode where they play Desperado, and Brett says that's his song, and he like zones out when they play Desperado, and Elaine wants Witchy Woman to be their song. This is also the episode where the Japanese tourists are with Kramer, and he's Kramer is taking them around and basically spending all their money. So kind of a goofy premise. He puts, so Brett gets him the Farnman drawers that were these giant drawers, and he's able to put the Japanese guests in the drawers. So that's kind of silly. At the end, I think Brett dies. It's kind of implied because the doctor zones out to Witchy Woman or something like that. Brett thinks that Jerry's broke. There was one funny scene when they were pitching the pilot to the Japanese TV executives, and the Japanese executive says, "You must go." I like that. Also, George thought that basically the Japanese version of Susan liked her. So one more scene. George is freaking out, trying to call Jerry frantically about this whole TV pilot pitch, and he's just frantically talking to Jerry, and Jerry answers, "Uncle Leo." That was pretty funny, but that was number 147, the checks. Number 146, the mom and pop store from season 6. George buys a convertible he thinks was once owned by John Voight. Kramer tries to save a small shoe repair business. Elaine answers a radio quiz, and Mr. Pitt gets to participate in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade. And also there's Tim Watley's Thanksgiving party that Jerry tries to figure out if he was invited or not. There's just a bunch of silly, dumb premises. I wasn't really a fan of any of them. Jerry was wearing cowboy boots. Apparently they got the actual John Voight, and this actually happened to one of the writers where they thought they bought John Voight's car. So it was cool that they were able to get John Voight. And apparently John Voight biting Kramer was not scripted or something. I don't know. There was an homage to Midnight Cowboy. I didn't like the plot about the mom and pop. So not a great episode in my opinion. It had some moments though. 145, the keys. So Kramer keeps invading Jerry's privacy and getting into his apartment. So Jerry takes away his keys. Kramer is shaken and leaves for California to pursue an acting career. And George and Elaine and Jerry are arguing over spare key privileges. George and Jerry learn that Elaine is writing a Murphy Brown script, and Kramer ends up on Murphy Brown. I'm not sure why I didn't like it. It's just kind of a goofy premise. Maybe because it was a lot of it was not set in the apartment or in New York. It was Kramer going to California. There was a good bit where Jerry would say something and George or Elaine would like mumble to themselves, and he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, oh, nothing. There was a good scene between George and Kramer where Kramer says, do you ever yearn? And George says, well, I crave all the time, constant craving. Kramer also says the line, up here, I'm already gone. And when he was going to when he was driving in a van with a bunch of hippies, one of them says, have you ever killed a man? And Kramer says, what do you think, Junior? You think these hands have been soaking in ivory liquid? We also see Newman in this episode. So that, but yeah, that's, I guess that's why I didn't like the keys, because it was kind of not your typical Seinfeld episode. 144, the couch from season 6. Jerry's new couch is completely ruined when Elaine upsets a man with a bladder condition. Kramer decides to start his own pizza business. George joins a book club instead of reading the book he watches the movie. I think this is why I hated this episode or didn't like it as much, is that whole subplot with George going to the people's house, stranger's house, to watch a movie and being typical George, being super annoying. It was that kind of brought the episode down for me. Poppy peeing on the couch is kind of iconic. It's an iconic scene. But a lot of this episode deals with, oh boy, talk about topical, people's stances on abortion. And there is actually a line in there. So Jerry gets a new couch, and the movers move it in. One of the movers is a good looking guy, and Elaine hits it off with him, but they seem like the perfect match. But when she finds out that he is against abortion, they have to break up. And there's actually a scene where he says, when we get enough people in the Supreme Court, we're going to overturn that abortion decision. So unfortunately topical. But yeah, the whole thing about George going to a stranger's house to watch a movie, that was not good. So that's 144, the couch. 143, the apartment from season 2. When an apartment becomes available in Jerry's building, he helps Elaine get it, only to regret his decision to do so. George starts wearing a wedding ring because he's heard that it helps single guys pick up women. The thing that brought down this episode for me was Harold and Manny. I'm glad that they were not in a whole lot of episodes. They were, I just did not like them at all. The premise with George pretending to be married, that was funny because every woman there was just like was about to throw themselves at him, except that, and they kept saying, well, too bad you're married. So that's funny. There's a great line. George says, is that right? I just threw away a lifetime of guilt-free sex and floor seats to every sporting event in Madison Square Garden. So please, a little respect, for I am Costanza, Lord of the Idiots. 142, the nose job from season 3. Jerry dates an actress and struggles with overcoming his sexual desire for her. George dates a woman with a large nose who decides to get a nose job after a careless comment from Kramer. There was a subplot with Kramer in the jacket that went on for several episodes. Oh, okay, whatever. But this is one of those great scenes where they're all talking and they're all together, and Kramer says to George's girlfriend, you're as pretty as any of them, you just need a nose job. And everybody could not believe that he would just blurt that out. That's Kramer for you. The fake nose on her was just, it was pretty bad bit of makeup. They made it ridiculously big and ugly. So okay, we get it. And then she gets a nose job, and it's a botched nose job, and George like basically faints and throws up. That was a bad look. This is also the episode where basically in Jerry's head, the penis and the brain are playing a chess game. That was funny. That's a great premise. Kind of weird that Kramer ended up with George's girlfriend. I think that's kind of, I don't know, wasn't too crazy about that, but that was so there were some good parts of that. Number 141, the Wig Master from season 7. Susan's friends are in town for a production of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. Kramer wears the coat and is mistaken for a pimp. There's a whole thing about parking lots, right? A prostitution ring. Jerry buys a jacket, returns it for spite. Elaine tries to buy a dress from the guy that Jerry gets a jacket from, but is stunned to learn he's holding it until Elaine sleeps with him. So this is Craig, the ponytail, the guy with the ponytail. That's what brought the episode down for me. I did not like Craig. Maybe I didn't like the ponytail. I don't know. But the prostitutes having sex in George and Kramer's cars was pretty interesting. There was a funny scene where George was trying to figure out what was going on, and he's paying one of the hookers just for time, just to talk to her, to find out what's going on. And Susan turns up. It's like, of course. So that was funny. But yeah, Kramer basically looked like a pimp with his dream coat. So there was also a good character, the Jiffy Park guy. He appears, I think, in one other episode. Really good. He had a good line. He's like, what do I want to know about it, or something like that. So yeah, that was the Wig Master number 141. Number 140, the Stakeout from season 1. Lane drags Jerry to a birthday dinner for one of her friends. He meets an attractive woman, and then he forgets her name, and it gets really awkward with Elaine because they just recently broke up. Jerry's parents are in town for a wedding, and the dad suggests he stakes out the lobby, and George tags along. So maybe this episode, basically, I dislike almost all the episodes from season 1 and season 2, but I think I dislike this one particularly because Jerry's dad was different. It was a different actor playing Jerry's dad, and that just did not sit well with me. I don't understand. They changed George's dad, the actor that played George's dad, and they redid all the scenes, but they didn't redo the scene with Jerry's dad. They didn't redo the scenes in this episode, and I wish they would have. This is the first time we hear George make up the name Art Vandelay. There is a good line. He eventually meets up with her, and she says, "Do you date immature men?" And he says, "Almost." Oh no, he says, "Do you date immature men? Did you date immature men?" She says, "Almost exclusively." So, and then at the end, Jerry and Elaine have a talk about how things are going to be since they're not dating anymore, and how they're going to be around other people that they want to date. So it was kind of breaks the no hugging, no learning premise. So that's 140, the Stakeout. Number 139, the Truth from season 3. A bad breakup between George and his girlfriend leads to tax troubles for Jerry. So Jerry is being audited by the IRS because he was trying to impress Elaine about some charity that Kramer brought up about the brave Krakatoans and some volcano or something like that. But so he gives his papers to George's girlfriend Patrice, who I guess is a tax specialist or whatever. But George breaks up with her and puts her into a mental hospital or something. And also there's a plot with Elaine having to put up with Kramer, who is dating her roommate, and Elaine saw Kramer naked. So there's that whole plot with that. But what brought this episode down, bad character alert, Patrice. She's weird even for New York. She was wearing a kimono. She said she pronounced it papier mâché or something like that. That just brought down the whole episode for me. I did not like her. There is a good line at one point. Jerry says, "That's not karma, that's Kramer." And we see Tina, who is Elaine's roommate. We'll see her many times. So that's 139, the Truth. 138, the Heart Attack from season 2. After suffering what he thinks is a heart attack, George discovers he has inflamed tonsils and seeks alternative medicine to heal. And also Elaine likes George's doctor, and they go out on a date, but that doesn't go well. There's also a subplot where Jerry can't figure out what he wrote. He was watching something late at night. It was actually a scene from Larry David about some weird. He was saying some weird thing. He wrote it down, and then he couldn't figure out what he wrote down, and he asked everybody what he wrote. Okay, that wasn't the greatest premise. But this is basically the main part of this episode is George thinks he has a heart attack. He's cheap, so he doesn't want to pay for inflamed tonsils. So he goes to Tor, I believe his name is, who gives him some kind of weird drink and makes George turn purple. And then he ends up in a ambulance going to the hospital. The paramedics get into a fight what I that was, they get out and fight, and then the paramedic gets into a crash. Okay, kind of a silly plot. Yeah, Elaine goes out with the doctor, but that does not go well. I did like the scene where George says, just end it. Just put the pillow over my head. Just end it now. And Jerry's like, okay. So he puts the pillow. It looks like he's trying to kill George. And Elaine walks in, and Jerry says, Elaine, what are you doing here? That was a funny scene, but I don't know. I'm just I don't know why I didn't like this episode, but it just wasn't, maybe just because it was from season 2. I'm not a fan of season 2. Number 137, the baby shower, also from season 2. Kramer convinces Jerry to get a legal cable. Elaine holds a baby shower for a former girlfriend of George on whom he wants revenge for a callous incident. The illegal cable plot was funny. Kramer wants Jerry to get illegal cable. He doesn't want it. There's these Russians. One of those Russians looks like Roddy Piper, by the way, but that actually was not Roddy Piper. But there's a dream sequence where it was actually the feds have a sting, and they're about to arrest Jerry, and Jerry says, we're patsies, and we're just users, and he runs away and he gets shot by them, and Kramer holds Jerry and says, what have you done to my little cable boy? That was good. But what brought down this episode was Leslie, the pregnant lady. She's just really annoying. The way she treats Elaine and George was just really annoying. It really bothered me. So they have a baby shower at Jerry's apartment, and because of a blizzard or something, Jerry and George come back early, and George is about to confront Leslie, but he backs down. But then some woman that Jerry dated confronts Jerry and just goes nuts on him. That was a good scene. So but yeah, 137, the baby shower. Number 136, the busboy from season 2. George tries to apologize to a busboy after one of his comments got him fired, but only makes things worse. Elaine tries to get one of her male friends out of their house. Not sure why I didn't like this episode. It just, I don't know, maybe the plots were just not that great. Kind of a silly premise. They're all eating at a restaurant, and the busboy had something that got too close to a candle, so there was a small fire, and that caused the busboy to be fired. And then he went up to the busboy's apartment to apologize, and it caused him to lose his cat. And then he broke a lamp. And then in the end, that was all good because the busboy would have died in an explosion if he still worked there, and he found his cat again. There's a plot with Elaine where she suddenly doesn't like him anymore, something like that, and couldn't wait to get rid of him. And they're running late for the airport, and she does this freak out scene where she hurries up and gets him ready for the airport, but that doesn't work. There's also a scene where George knows all the good public bathrooms. Like, okay. 136, the busboy. 135, the blood from season 9. Jerry's parents hire their friend Izzy Mandelbaum to become Jerry's personal trainer. George decides to associate food and television with his love life. What brought this episode down was the whole thing about the blood. Kramer was hoarding the blood, and then he had to transport it in Jerry's car. Jerry's car overheated, so he filled Jerry's car with blood. That's just way too much. Also, the plot with George basically wanting to have sex while eating, that just I don't know, that just did not sit well with me. For some reason, Elaine wanted to be a babysitter. One theme I've noticed in Seinfeld is every kid and whenever there's a kid in a Seinfeld episode, they are like the most horrible behaving kids ever. I don't know why, but they always make the kids like horrible, just behaving really badly. So but it was good to see Izzy Mandelbaum again, the great character. Number 134, the junk mail from season 9. Kramer is annoyed with the catalogs he keeps getting in the mail. Elaine falls in love with a guy because of his smile. George's parents are avoiding him, and Jerry can't find it in his heart to reject a gift from an old school friend. There's just a lot going on here, and it's just the whole thing about the junk mail and the mail service does not want him to cancel mail, and Wilford Brimley is involved, and I don't know. There's just a lot that didn't work in this episode, but especially Elaine dumps Putty for this guy who's the Wiz, and nobody beats the Wiz. And to me, that was a really annoying character. And then there's this thing with a van and George having sex with his cousin, and there's sex in the woods, and George's parents having it was just a lot. I don't know. No, I was not a fan. So that is numbers 150 through 134. Thanks for watching and or listening. I will have more of these as I watch more episodes. All right. Bye.